I'm starting recording now just because that last time I told Branks I had to back up, and then I was like, I'll do it once we start, and then I never did it.
All right, everyone, welcome to the first Not Even Community podcast. I'm joined by Solaries, HardheadedMurphy, and Gilly. And we have guest star Feca today.
How's it
Our
going,
main
guys?
topic for today was going to be just the state of StarBorne, the broadest question ever, but something that's actually just so vital to actually get out in the community and discuss. And to start off with the topic today, we'll go with Feca. So, Feca,
Oh boy.
what is your opinion right now on, just tell me what you think you love most about the game in general and what you dislike most about the current state of the game in general.
Okay, this is pretty broad, but I'll take it with stride here. Definitely, I think we mentioned earlier, and you'll see me constantly talking is the teamwork aspect of the game. I'll let you kind of hit that one probably more because I know you I think you might even have a whole topic for this. But getting together, the fact that we now have a pretty active Discord, meeting the players, meeting my friends, that we now play other games with and stuff too, right? Like it's definitely a community building game. There's not a lot of action in StarBorne, right? So it's there from time to time, but there's a lot of idle time where you're sitting there, and if you end up on Discord, you just be joking around and goofing off. So that's definitely my favorite part of StarBorne, and I really hope to see them consistently push in the like going forward to do group activities and doing things kind of together. My least favorite thing about StarBorne, definitely, I think it's a thing that plagues every genre of game like this, and why you don't see too many. I guess they call it MMO, RTS, 4X, something, right? This genre of game like Trivian, Grepless, and stuff like that is just the retention and playing in an empty server. I think specifically, there'll be a lot of talk about server one, what happened, and I guess the thing they try to fix often is the appearance of the game. If I dump, say if someone like you have players that dump $100 into a server and then all of a sudden everyone quits the server because you've now powered too far forward or whatever happens, that kind of stuff is something that just plagues the genre. So I'm interested to see Solid Clouds. I think they're able to do it, and I'm very excited to see if they can overcome the things that have plagued the genre for years.
So yeah, so I would actually just agree with both of those points. So to expand on your negative for a second, we'll focus on that one. So, do you think the weekly releases is actually contributing to a lot of player retention issues on individual servers?
So I like this question a lot because I think about it, and there's games similar to this that aren't exactly like this, but say for Rust is a good example of a server-based game that resets every month. What they do is like the first Thursday of every month is they release all the servers, right? A bunch of servers. So that way you're picking one, and if you want to bail, you have to wait for the next month of servers. So then you're kind of stuck on it. You might try to make the best of a bad situation. With the weekly releases, if you screw up in that first week, oh man, here's another server. It lasts the same amount of time. If you dip servers, it's not like that server's been going on. However, I know with beta, it is kind of tough that they can't exactly, I guess, estimate how many players are really going to come. So releasing multiple servers is something you have to do. What I would like to see is it more addressed in game. Give me reasons to stay on a server. Maybe track if I stay on a server. I'd like to see more profile stuff like, oh, Feca has a 80% retention rate on all servers. So then when you go to recruit someone, or if you were to leave a server, it's then recorded on your account. Be like, oh, this person bails often, or this or that. Now I also understand new players like to bail, and that's one thing. But we have entire servers dumping off, right? Like veterans entirely. So I think there's game mechanics that can be placed there, but those have to be placed there if we're going to do week launches. That's kind of how I see it.
100% agree on that point. So, Solaris, I'll ask what you asked Feca. What's the favorite thing about the game for you, and then what's your least favorite thing about the game?
I have to agree entirely with Feca. I think my favorite aspect has been the broad ability to bring people together, and the idea that politics will play a more part in the game than it actually appears. Um, the teamwork that is involved in bringing that together can be massive, and I know, being a lowly NE member myself, I've seen a very small part of what's been going on behind the scenes to to actually bring that together. Um, and I have a lot of hope for what that would be in the future as the game and the community starts to mature. I think that those things also sort of happen together. A lot of time people will probably try to look at the game and as if it's sort of floating in space, and it is what it is, and it's never going to change. And that's never been true for any online game I've ever seen. The community has changed over time, and because of that, the game itself has changed over time. But as that happens, the meta will change as well a bit, and hopefully the mechanics of the game will continue to allow that to evolve with it. So I think that's probably my favorite thing. I'll try to avoid repeating what Feca said about the servers sort of dying off, and maybe bring in a couple of other aspects there. This game doesn't have anything that I would really call a comeback mechanic. If you are going down, there's nothing that's really going to save you from a mechanics perspective. You have only one option really, and it's going to be talking to people. Um, and I think that a lot of people would look at this, and when it's sort of sold as an RTS game, it's really difficult for them to understand that the mechanics are not going to save them. It is going to be their ability to speak with other people, to make alliances, to maybe break alliances, in order to be able to have any shot at whatsoever from recovery. And I think that what we'll see is a lot of people. I saw recently from the recent community update, they're talking about doing some research and figuring out where people drop off and in the game, and looking at the numbers and the analytics behind that. And I think what we'll probably see is a lot of people are dropping off when they feel like they have no shot whatsoever. And so we need to have something that addresses that.
Something I want to just address out in the open for everyone to answer is, what do you feel that the influence number plays actually a really big part in people leaving or not? We all know that influence really doesn't matter from a leaderboard winning perspective, but from a demoralization perspective, do you guys think it really matters that much?
I'll let somebody else chime in first, as I was just talking a whole bunch, but I'll be able to step in as well.
While we wait for people to type, I definitely think it plays a huge demoralization factor. And that's something you can see they're trying to address. I believe that's why they took out coalitions, is they don't want it to seem like, oh, there's no chance I'll ever get up there. I would love to see something as far as like when you get like destruction value, once they fix destruction values, like have that points added to, or maybe if you destroy ships, like you get IP, and then maybe they show your level or something, and then like that way there's more than one way to gain influence, and that way it's not all on just how many buildings you have, because buildings really don't matter or anything if you don't have ships. And I know you can't show ships because then there's the whole psyops thing there, but it does matter to a point, as HardheadedMurphy says, but I'm in a mixed bag. I don't know if there's a better system for me.
I'll agree. I think influence itself isn't necessarily a great metric, and I know that they've have a couple others, including just station, hex claim, loot. Strangely enough, but maybe if they had a more hybrid system where they weight your combat expertise and your resource gain, something like that, and try and make a more meta statistic to be able to bring together, that might be a bit more effective. Um, I would say if you are a player, I've only been playing this thing since the launch of open beta, and I'll tell you, S1 looking into it, seeing these other people fly up and influence. I'm literally like, how is that even possible? Um, it shows what could be to have those flat numbers. So I think something needs to still be there.
Now,
There's definitely more to the story.
I'm interested if they were to make a different system, if it would be even worse, right? Like where if they added like ships and missions and loot, and as I was kind of thinking about it, right? Like would that be even more demoralizing? Like because influence is something that doesn't really matter, right? That's what I think about a lot too.
I totally actually agree with that point. That's my main worry. Whatever they implement is 100%, in my opinion, going to be even worse.
Right.
It's to the point where I've actually considered, would it be better for the game to just nuke leaderboards until you actually have scanning range of that player? That's a question I've been asking myself a lot.
Oh. That's you could probe them and then they show up on the leaderboard. Like, if you really care, if you want to see how am I doing versus Feca, like let me send a 24-hour probe to his station.
You only get an update when you spy them.
Something at least requiring active participation to see that place.
Right, because then you'd see the people near you, which is like what new players really care about, right? Like you shouldn't care about what someone on the other side of the universe is doing. You should care what in my sector, how am I doing, really? So that's actually a pretty cool idea.
And even implement that for like your claim strength, because you can exploit that to figure out where their outposts are, which is, I think, kind of a big oversight. So like maybe just have it where you can only see the boundary, but you can't see their strength unless you send a probe, for instance. And then that would be
Yeah.
similar to the mechanic works for missions, because if you send the probe, then you kind of have an idea of where you need to send your next probe.
Well, I think again, I do agree with this point, and a big issue with the game is visibility right now, right? Like S10, and S1, we've seen a lot of people who feel that they can't win, so they're either trying to cross lines or they're gonna try and leave the server and go to the next one. Because at the end of the day, if you feel like you've lost, it would be easier to go to the next server rather than keep fighting, right? And the main thing I would ask is, would we want to fix that issue, or do we want to add more things that promote gameplay specifically for staying in a server, like more rewards or more account-based blueprints for staying longer? It's like there's all sorts of things you can do to argue the point, but even if we implement really good first place rewards, it's not going to stop everyone, but it is still an incentive for a lot of the player base.
Maybe let me ask you a question,
Yeah, go ahead.
Becca and Biggles. How in a world right now, how would you evaluate a new recruit? Does influence enter in some of that, or hex claim, or any of that?
Yeah, you have a go at this, Feca, then I'll go after.
Okay, sure. Yeah, it literally influence almost matters nothing to me. What I really truly care about, what we've always said since really the beginning and core of what Gravity is now, we've always recruited strictly based off of how much do you type in Discord and how much do you hop in. Voice is kind of give or take. We understand some people don't really like to get on voice, but we actually have recorded this like statistically. We have the me 6 spot in our Discord, and the more you type, the higher your influence actually ends up becoming, regardless of when you start. So if we take a new recruit that has really crappy influence and we bring them in and they talk a lot, there's a direct correlation between talking and more influence. Now, if you don't talk, you can still be a good player, but people that didn't talk or that were bad or that had low influence, it was only possible if you didn't talk. So you could have high influence and not talk, but you could never have low influence and be talking. And that was like kind of a like really cool correlation for us. And we realized it's one without the other, right? So that's the biggest thing to us is absolute communication in a game that requires coordination.
Yeah, I mean, for me, recruiting members, I do let influence play a part because there is a well-rounded representation of your total activity, right? It doesn't matter completely, but it does give you a good idea of someone's basic understanding of the game. And what I mean by this is, if someone's like, say you're on the second day and they're like 400, I don't know exact numbers. I haven't played this. I'm still trying to get over the numbers from Alpha 8. Like, the numbers in my brain are all wrong. But let's say you're like doubly behind than someone else as a free-to-play player against another free-to-play player. I'm going to compare you, right? If I have one of my guys in, like, let's say someone from Worried, right, and he's got 400 influence, and this new guy I'm recruiting has 150, and they're both free to play, you do have to kind of consider the influence. But I mainly do it on, like Feca said, their activity in the Discord is more important than their actual gameplay, because then you can speak to them and teach them the game instead of someone being decent at the game but not wanting to communicate at all. It does ruin your entire alliance, because it is at the end of the day, it is an alliance. It's not a group of single players all looking to play singly.
And I found the graph, and I just posted it in the podcast text. This is actually manually entered all 100 players from tournament server. And you see it goes talking on the bottom, like Discord messages. And as that goes up, so does your influence. And you don't have anyone in the top left proving that if you're not, like, as long as you talk, you'll have some influence. So that was a really cool correlation for us. It's something we've used basically since we've been in Alliance.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
you go.
Yeah, I mean, activity is very important to answer your question, but at the same time, influence does play a part. And I think if we go from our own perspective, if they did it so that it was a more a fog of war mechanic and we had to not know the leaderboards, I would still ask for their influence, right? I would still ask a recruiter their influence purely because I needed to know their rough activity.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I don't think there's an easy way to fix the problem, right? There is arguments to be made for both sides, but at the end of the day, you can't really stop pre-mates. There are people who are willing not to win to play in a pre-mate. There's always people willing to just work as a team and win as a team rather than them getting the rewards. Some people don't care about the rewards. They really don't. They just want to have fun, right? They want to play this game, play with their buddies, make sure that they're all joking around in voice chat. You got people like in Fab and in NEC and in Blood Reavers, you got people in voice chat joking around for hours before an attack happens, right?
Right.
You've got all these people who are together and now play different games outside of StarBorne because they've like really like got involved with each other and they know each other. So like you've actually like got comradeship there, and that's something that this game really excels in. It's promoting the relationships between players.
And I have some context that I kind of realized might be important. As far as gravity is concerned, we played now 3 servers. We've only ever had 2 people drop in the entirety. So we actually haven't had to actively go recruit people. And both those 2 people dropped within the first week of the server. So we've always played with people that our only metric has actually just been Discord chat, because there's no way they don't have influence by the time I'm recruiting them. So that may be why my answer is a little bit more skewed away from influence for in-game stuff.
Yeah, that's just the disparity between the groups. You've had a lot of people stay, and I'll go and say it. It's like me, Gambler's team, a bunch of other teams. We did lose a lot of guys. We recruited new people. We brought them in for tournament, and then we all know what happened. Like, we don't have to go on to that for another hour, but flu happened, and people did leave. And now we've got to consider, hey, is us recruiting for our pre-made bad thing? And that's a question that I'm actually going to ask. What does everyone think about pre-made groups coming into a server? And how do you feel that affects the game in general from a new player perspective?
For sure.
So, my perspective on pre-mades, like jumping into a server with a group of people you already know, you've already played with, helps you to enjoy what time you do spend in the game all that much. At the same time, coming in, like when I jumped in on S1, I was alone in a universe, and I looked around, and I'm like, whoa. And this is day 3, and there's already 5, 6, 10 people with 3 stations at T4, and I'm like, ah, crap, I'm in for it. But I stuck around and I had fun, and I still have fun, and that's the reason I even play the game, is because I have fun. um, I like the fact that I can jump in, tell my stations to start building this, tell my fleets to start doing this, and then go to work or go to school. And I come home and everything's done, and I've got a group of guys going, hey, can we attack this station? Now this is back on S1. Can we attack this station or this MVC? I'm like, all right, well, let's get our stuff together and see what we can do, and let's get a spy report done. And it's a lot of camaraderie, and it goes back to going in as a team. If you jump in as a team, you already know what your goals are going to be. a lot of it has to do with who's going to do what. Obviously, who's going to be the spy, who's going to start streaming for the AS as soon as you get it ready to go, who's going to be doing this and who's going to be doing that. And there you go.
Without a doubt. I just couldn't agree more. It's just such an advantage. Now, one of the other crazy things is, when you go, I make this comparison a lot. When you go play any other game, really, there's some kind of hidden elo or some kind of matchmaking where you're never going to play against like what quote like pro players would be. So if you want to play League, you're not going up against the pro League players. You're going up against people of equal skill. With StarBorne and other games like this, there really is no matchmaking. You just join a server, right, and you just get put up against like pre-maze. There's no like, okay, only join as a 15-man group. It's no, everyone's joining individually and just good luck. So that's something I'm interested to see in the future too. And I think Solid Class has mentioned like a possibility for servers where you kind of pre-register for, and I think that might take a lot out of that. So like newer players could group up and still do their thing and not be under pressure of a big pre-made like me, which you can't help because you're friends now, right? At this point, once you play through your first server, you're friends. You're not just gonna be like, screw you, good luck finding a new group, nerd. Like you're gonna play with them again, right? So it's an interesting dynamic that goes back and forth.
Well, yeah, this is another issue that you just skipped on a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact of, hey, I've been on this server as I'm a brand new player. I've recruited 15, right? I've got this group together. But do I disband this and do it again, or do I go with those on a new server? And that's what we've been seeing a lot with this beta and alpha. On the beta servers, we've got people who have natural alliances forming, and they're going to become a pre-made. We all know it's going to happen.
Right.
They're going to become a pre-made because of the way the game works and the way humans work as a species. They will group up and they will go to the next server together. They're like, hey, we've got this alliance ready. Let's go kick some ass on this server. And then they go to this server, and then, hey, some people notice that they're first on the leaderboard. So, hey, can we join your group? We're full, I'm sorry. But we can make a training alliance. And then it kind of escalates from there, like we're seeing all the time. And it's a big problem in my book that people do devalue the achievements of some groups made if they're pre-made, right? That's something we've been seeing a lot. People do publicly say that the victory doesn't matter because you're all a big bad pre-made, right? We'll get it out there in the open. That's what has been said. And I feel it like devalues from the work like the guys have put in. You know what I mean? It's like you've done all this work and then people are just like, I don't want to play anymore. You're big bad.
Right, which is interesting because it's reversed because like most MMOs, right, you keep your progress, and in this one specifically, it's cool because it resets, so it does put us on a level playing field. So the only thing stopping us is like our skill differential, and that's what a cool part of this game is, right? After you play for a while, after you're on your second or third wipe, you're like, okay, I kind of get what's going on, right? And then as soon as you start doing well, half the server yells at you for being a pre-made. Even if you're not a pre-made, they're like, oh, well, that's just a veteran that knows what he's doing. And I'm like, yeah, but that's the point. Come learn, come do this, and it's a rewarding cycle. Even more so than like an MMO where actually that guy's put in a year, he has all this crazy gear, and you don't go to yell at that World of Warcraft player being like, wow, you've been playing for a year, like, and that's like the only reason you're so good. Like they cherish that person, like, wow, that's such cool armor, right? But in our community, how we view it, we're not at that point yet, and I hope we are at that point. Like, oh man, that guy's a really good player. It's more just like, oh, well, that guy just has friends or something, right? But it's a natural human progression, as Biggles said, and it's interesting to see how it works, and it's even more interesting when it's the same person that like yells at you, right? And you see them the next server, and they got their squad, and they're doing really well, and now they're kind of like, oh, okay, I think they slowly get it, right?
Yeah, going on that, I was always kind of surprised that there's not servers based on skill. Like, maybe for the beginning players, they play on a different server, but it's sped up. So instead of 70 days, it might be a 30-day server, and so on. And it kind of progresses. As you unlock achievements, you unlock higher difficulty servers. So then that at least kind of gives a level playing field when people start, or at least puts them at a roughly approximately same part of the learning curve for this game.
Right.
I mean, I agree with the point, but then there's also the counter argument of, are you truly learning if you're not in the deep end environment, right? Like, this is something that we discuss, actually discussed with Feca, right?
Yeah.
When we talk about the new service. If you're not in the deep end and you're on you're kind of like babied in a tutorial server, are you really getting the full experience to play the game, or are you just being handheld through a server? And that's a big problem that I've noticed. that a lot of people, even people training people, have done. They've kind of given them a guide which is bare minimum, rather than going, hey, this is what you need to do. If you don't do this, you're going to be very far behind. And I've kind of like given my guys the brutal truth of how the game works, and that's something you do have to do.
I mean, you could easily do something where you make a or a training and alliance be an achievement. Like, hey, if you're a leader for an alliance that's designated as a training alliance, and you start with the lower tier servers and you progress them through the different levels, then you get an achievement and you get like special rewards. So I don't think that's a terribly big concern.
So
Well, this is. Yeah, go ahead, Feca.
I kind of have a different angle with it, and because I do kind of like the idea of that, but unfortunately at this point, I don't think we have a big enough community to be splitting up our players right now based off skill. We're still kind of a fledgling community, and the catch-22, the funny part about it is, having this idea would increase player base, but we can't do it without an increased player base. So I think we're kind of teeter-tottering, and I know, Solid Cause is open to doing, different types of servers and all this stuff, but unfortunately, we even saw in the tournament server, we tried doing it, and then it's really not enough people to even fill it, and that was with all veterans.
I do think that tournament server is a skewed demographic, and we can't really use that as any evidence for any gameplay.
Sure, but the first few minutes, right? You can't. Or the first few hours, right? You could use, and it didn't fill up quickly at all.
I agree, and I think that's one of the problems we're having right now is we need the player base to become bigger, right? And then once the player base is bigger, the devs will be more open to me yelling at them for a new premium server, right? And that's what a lot of us vets want. I want to jump in with my entire group, go against Feca's entire group, and Sinbad's entire group, because that's going to be hilarious.
Yeah.
Because we all know Blood Reaver's just going to kill everyone. But yeah, having an actual premium server is something I would really like to happen, but we do need the player base for it.
Yeah, and like Vane says, we want the challenge, right? We don't enjoy going. The reason we went so hard on server 1 was because there was a lot of competition on server 1, right? That's why we went in a big pre-made. We were definitely outnumbered, at least from what I saw initially. But we're not going here. We don't want to just kill a bunch of noobs, right? That's not fun for us, just as much as it's not fun for new players, right? They'll end up quitting and then all that kind of stuff. So we're not doing this where we do the big teams for a while until there is a challenge server, and that's what we want, right? I want a veteran server. I want them to restrict it and be like, yo, only if you've completed a server you can play, or only if you've have premium like they did in the tournament server you can play. I like those gated things. Then I don't feel so bad about just completely nuking some alliance, because it's like, all right, you're a veteran, I don't have to feel guilty.
I mean, that's actually a point to bring up in general. The fact that people do give new players the benefit of the doubt. Like, I know I've done it before.
Mm-hmm.
You let them live because they're brand new. I just don't want to bomb them out yet. I want them to stay and play the game.
Yeah.
They've not communicated with you at all. But then you reach the issue of some players will attack you, and you don't want to bomb them out because they're brand new. But then you kind of, it's like with when the entire claim strength system was even worse. You had people who would specifically build stations next to you to just kind of really hamper your early game, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want to bomb out these new players, but when they do stuff to really irritate you, you kind of are forced to. And that's something that the green zone does fix. Granted, the green zone is great. But now the competition is in the middle of the map, which is what is good. But then again, you make the argument that the middle of the map is now a really, really, really hard place to survive for a new player. And then do you make the argument that the new player is now subpar because they don't want to go to the middle and they can't risk it? Or do you make the argument that it's good for the new player to be able to build in green? That's another thing you could also discuss.
For sure.
Yeah, exactly what Vane said in chat. The green zone's not good, and you have to go into the middle to compete, and some people don't want to go into the middle to compete. And it seems just that the green zone's purpose works in paper, and it's working so far, but some players feel forced, from what I've been hearing, to leave the green zone, and when you're brand new to the game, that could be really bad for you.
Yeah, and it's still the first iteration. I think it's truly addressing. It's an attempt to address the problem that new players are displaced. I think in the old map, you saw this way more where, oh, sorry, you spawned in our sector. You had a 1 in 19 chance, and all 19 had an alliance that already wanted that sector, and you're dead, right? Now, at least there's a little bit of decision making where you can kind of move off. It's still not great, but I do think it's a step in the right direction. I think they're thinking in that direction.
I totally agree. I think from a new player perspective and a veteran perspective, the new map is a lot better for actual gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
But there are, again, problems with every sort of map you have.
One thing that just kind of popped in my head might be interesting for newer players. What if there was an actual ability to sort of communicate the area that you more or less considered your territory, so that newer players would think, okay, I should not try and set myself down to these people, or you know, if I do so, I already know I'm going to be up against all of this. I should probably try to use my colonization director and go as far away as possible.
So kind of like just globally claiming, like, hey server, this is ours, go away. Like something like that, you mean? Like where you
Yeah, I'm
just...
just trying to think of some way to improve the experience for a new player who is just, trying to set out, colonize a new area, and not get bombed out day one.
I feel like that's actually a really good idea, personally. Like having the ability for an alliance, or even a player to go and mark territory and say, "We're claiming this as ours," and then that you could attach a note to it and say, "Claimed for X alliance for X reason." Right? That's something that's really interesting. What's your thoughts on that idea, Feca?
Yeah, so I was pulling up the image of exactly us doing this already. So this is what we would send people, saying exactly what space is what, right? Where this is a natural progression, right? Just like you said, it's we kind of had to tell people what was what. So and I was trying to be open about what we're dealing with, right? Like this is why we're being like this, because we're also you have Not Even to our left, you have Blood Reavers to our northeast or whatever, and we're kind of pinch here, and we're going for the Dyson. So that's why we kind of need a little bit more of Serpents. If you want to go to this red area, all that's your space, like, or shared. We'll have some stations there, but we're not going to be aggressive towards you if you're in that red space. Now, every new leader that messaged me, now that there's 15-man alliances, I would just send them this and just be like, hey man, this is what we're working with, like. This is what we're willing to agree with. They either agree with us or they don't. If they agree with us, we work some deals out. If they don't agree, and so it's not so much as like a non-aggression pact or some alliance that we're like tied to, but it is helping out new players. So now you're not tied to us. You don't owe us anything. But if you just go over there, that's something you can do. And it's had varying effects because you do have some of our players that are out in mono. I'm in Virgo a lot, so you still do have some conflicts, but it's not going to be like an alliance-wide, like we're all going to murder you, right? But if you are in that blue zone, that's kind of our attitude, right? Because we need a home sector.
And I think that's really great. And it is, however, if they made this into a really into an actual mechanic in the game, it would be perhaps the first step they've made toward adding things to the game that don't actually have a in-game repercussion. There would be nothing that supports this beyond just showing like where you think your political lines are. But I think that should be the direction the game goes in the end, because they should embrace the social aspects to make the game more playable for everybody. The easier it is to be more social, the more social interaction there will be, the more alliances will talk to each other, and the more this will distinguish itself from other games, such as the number of mobile games that are not too dissimilar.
I mean, yeah. A big thing, like you said, with the entire like painting a territory and helping people actually know what's what, is actually having stuff available to the public is better than having it behind the scenes. And this is the argument I made with Feca a bunch.
Yes, yeah.
We want the devs to give the players tools for the players to tell the players what's happening. We don't want it to be in a situation where the devs, for example, get themselves to judge who's allowed to do what. We don't want it to be in a situation where, hey, everything's behind the scenes. You can't do anything because if you trust this person, they're going to betray you. It's like having the ability to have stuff out in the open and having some sort of mechanic, like even if it was like what I've forgotten his name, but someone suggested the other week to have a bounty system, right? Your alliance is X percentage ahead of every other alliance, therefore you're marked red to everyone on the server. And there's a bounty for killing your stations. Even if it's like, hey, you now get a card, like an epic card because you killed the station belonging to X alliance. Granted, this could be abused, but it's the idea of, should there be catch-up mechanics if you're that far ahead, or if you're that far ahead, was it because you outplayed them and you've earned that spot? I think this sort of discussion is really healthy to have. It's like, how do we want the game to progress as players? Do we want to be able to go, hey, the server's just over, it's done, you can go now? Or do you want to have the ability to, hey, we're resisting against this alliance, if we kill their stations, we can catch up? And that's an argument definitely I think is good.
Yeah, and I think it hits the coalition thing a lot. I mean, this is just dancing all over the fact of the removal of coalitions, taking away things so people don't necessarily see that we're working together. I personally think was a step in the wrong direction. I understand why they would do it because it's everything like you're just saying, right? Like, there's two sides, schools of thought. Do you make it so it doesn't seem like it's that bad? Or do you show it and then potentially have people quit because they see it, right? And I think there's different type of people that react to it differently. But I would love to see more things. Just show all the information, right? Because the only people that got this map are the people that messaged me, right? That went out of their way. And once again, we talk about it time and time again. It's just about communication. But you'd have alliances that are settling in the blue zone, and they never messaged me. And there's a ton of 15-man alliances, and the alliance board wasn't working, so I didn't know. And then we'll be killing them, and then they're like, "Well, why are you killing us?" And I'm like, this is it.
Yeah, I mean,
I can drop out a video. I see that. I didn't really. It limits the amount of people in the chat.
yeah, only 25 people can watch if you're on a video. It's
Watch me or join the.
join the call because you're currently video calling. If you cancel, it should increase the limit.
Okay, yeah.
There you go. Yeah, the limit gets removed. It's a Discord limitation.
Okay.
The slots increase per the server boosting level.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Yep.
Yes, there's no problem. It only just reached 25. So yeah, I think that, again, it's a big argument to have, and it's something that I think the players should be having more is, what do we want to do in the game? How do we think we should go? And how do we convince the devs that this is a step in the right direction? What arguments can we give to devs to say, hey, hello, dev number 5. We think this is good. This is why it's good. And these are the players who agree. And again, if it's what the community wants, I think that's something that the devs will pay in mind. I mean, as a new player yourself, Solaris, do you feel like if you didn't join our team, do you feel like you would have, if you were against us, right? Put yourself into the perspective of an enemy, right? You're soloing right now against us. Would you have tried to join us? Would you have tried left, or would you have tried to find an alliance, or even just stay on your own? How would you have dealt with that situation, Solaris?
I had the good fortune that Leone happened to be my neighbor, and he was much more active and talking to everybody around me. So he dragged me in, and we were originally in a small alliance that was basically about to be more or less surrounded by NE. And when he switched over, I came with, as well as another member. But I think if that didn't happen, it would probably have stagnated the game for me entirely. We would have been not in a position to compete with you all, and we would have been. We didn't have enough active people by the time it actually got to that point that we could have even tried to make an alliance with somebody else. So it would have been either like a long haul, wait until somebody else attacks you, and then we take an opportunity to step in sort of situation, or we just accept what it is and farm our res until the end of time. So the game was essentially at that point either move on to NE or move to server 2.
So do you feel that it would have been better if you couldn't see the leaderboards, or do you feel like that wouldn't have mattered from your perspective in the game?
In that particular time, it wouldn't have mattered just because of the way the space was oriented. It wasn't even about the leaderboard. It was about these are the number of people that are around me.
I have a question for you too. Would it made a difference if you had seen that not even trying was allied with both Gravity and Blood Reavers, or are you not even paying attention outside your general area?
Yeah, that's not even trying to look outside of the one or two sectors that are in my vicinity, and I think that it's one of the few things I actually think is good about having a giant map is there is some sense of locality. Everybody that's going on, or everything that's happening on the other side of the map, really doesn't affect you until really late in the game, and or pretty late. Um, but those early days do mean though that the people who are immediately next to you will basically determine if you're going to leave that server or not.
Yeah, I had a similar experience when I was playing SQ. I was pretty much solo until around day 10, and I was up against NEF. I had no idea how big their alliance was. I mean, I saw the leaderboard, but I never kind of put, since I was a new player, I had no idea that there's like things like coalitions or that NE was uh, allied with Gravity. And so from my perspective, it was just like, okay, I've been at this star for a couple of days. I've been okay. And then here comes this other station. Oh, that's cool. And then they start, like taking all the solar flares and out producing me. And then they did attack me once, but then if it wasn't for them, talking and saying, "Hey, you seem like a new player and you're pretty active. Would you rather just join us instead of dying?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure," because I have no idea what I'm doing.
How do you feel about that? Like, it almost sounds like, I know it probably wasn't an ultimatum, but like, I mean, it kind of sounds like it. How do you feel about that being in the game, and do you think there really is a way around that?
Oh, either like joining us or
Uh,
die sort of option.
yeah, how does that make you feel as a player, and like, do you think that's necessarily a good or bad thing to kind of force you to make a decision?
I mean, it kind of goes back to the idea of where it would have been nice to have a server where you kind of learn some of the intricacies of the game, because it is an in-depth community and the game mechanics itself is not always intuitive. So it kind of was I don't know how to say this, but it kind of did feel like an ultimatum, but at the same time, I had already, put 10 days into it, and I was like, well, either I can play more and learn, and then if I like it, I can keep playing the game, or they can just tell me how to destroy a station because they're going to do it to me. I didn't have any ships, so it's not like I was going to be able to put up a fight. I knew that at least.
Yeah, and then like ultimately, I'm guessing since you're here on the podcast, I mean, it's a pretty good trade off. Then you enjoyed your join session, right?
Yeah, yeah, I thought it was it's been pretty enjoyable right now, and I've tried to share that sort of uh, idea of teaching the new players, but even you can only go so far. Like is what Biggle said. Like if you have some new player that's trying to choke you, it's like, yeah, I don't really want to bomb you, but at the same time, uh, please back off.
Yeah. Totally get it.
So we're gonna get a view from controller. We all knew it was gonna come up, but server one in general has come up, so we'll get some thoughts from controller on how that went.
Perfect.
Controller.
So yeah, in server one, it's just kind of the whole thing was that it was a big pre-made with a lot of vets against a much smaller kind of group, and it was really kind of intimidating where it's all of us. We knew ahead of time that people would be dropping in this massive alliance. We tried to scrap people together, but then we had to spend most of our time teaching those people, and it was really kind of seeing like you guys are up there, but then you have 6 alliances and I'll say 300 people, while we're struggling to even keep the people that we have.
Did you feel like you couldn't reach out to like say like the Zorkas, the wrestlers, the salamanders? Like I feel like there was enough alliances over there. Do you think you just weren't able to, or do you think there's a mechanic that would have helped you guys group up more, or do you just think it was a wash?
We were definitely communicating, but it was very difficult to get everyone to kind of agree on one thing. I think part of the problem was that we all dropped in the same sector, which definitely could have helped avoid some issues. Space was definitely something that got brought up a lot and caused a lot of issues between everyone, and probably could have been prevented easily. Beside that, yeah, we could have been a lot closer and communicated more, but we still would have definitely had less people, and we would have had to unite basically everyone else.
So did you just feel like that you didn't feel like it was worth putting the effort in to get everyone else up and running into the team, or did you just feel like it was more worth it for your group to go, hey, this is a really bad situation, we're gonna go to S2, or did you feel like there was some way the game could have helped with that situation, or was that just kind of just over for you?
I think that having catch-up mechanics. Sorry, I keep clearing my throat. I think catch-up mechanics would definitely help a lot, because if we keep getting new players halfway through the server that can't do anything, while it's great that we have them, there's kind of really no point if you're not dropping with them, which would alleviate a lot of issues with having pre-mades that are just kind of there and can't be moved, when you can have more people joining and actually being useful, even if it's a week or 2 weeks into the server.
So I'll ask something from like my perspective to you is like, do you feel like there's something more that we can do to announce that we're dropping in with a couple of alliances, or do you feel like us putting it in the politics chat is enough? How do you like feel with us being like really open about what we're doing and then recruiting more in game? What's your opinion on that situation?
I think that definitely helps, but even at that point, there's still not a whole lot you can do to prepare against that other than just do the exact same thing yourself. And then people have to decide, oh, do I want to go with this big, strong alliance or help out this smaller one?
Yeah,
Right.
I guess that's definitely an argument. I mean, again, the problem is this is what we discussed in the round table. It's not the round table, sorry. The in my coalition, we discussed the tactical leaderboard bullying, and this has been something that's been around for ages in like loads of games and StarBorne in general. Is hey, we're the number one alliance. Our neighbors are not allied with us, but because they're only ranked 16, we can go, hey guys, we're neighbors. Would you guys like to join us? We have these really big, scary-looking ships over here. Would you like to join us? And then kind of like leveraging that political power you gain from being like rank one or being like a big pre-made gives you more control over the rest of the people who spawn in naturally. And that's something that's happened a lot, and I feel like is one of the things that could have game made mechanics against by hiding leaderboards or by kind of giving incentive to fight big groups. Even if it's like you get a badge, for example. Let's say there was a massive deficit between your alliance and then the rank one alliance, and then you win. You should get a badge called like Rebellion or Catch Up or something to signify you fought against all odds to win that. Just something you can strive for to permit you to go, hey, these guys are ahead, but let's beat them.
So something I would like to add for context would be we said the numbers that dropped, but realistically and just straight up, we had 90 people that dropped. That's 3 alliances that we originally tied to, and then each of us had somewhat of like a sister alliance, is what most people would call it. With that in mind, from our point of view, right, we have 90 people. That's 6 alliances versus every other alliance in the game, which was way more than 6, way more than 6 veteran groups, and then we each did recruit. I don't even think Blood Reapers recruited a third yet, or they may have, but us and not even trying definitely recruited a third. And then the fact that while we started this, we realized coalitions weren't going to be a thing. Biggles and I kind of came to each other. I recognize Biggles personally as probably one of the better politic players in the game, and honestly, coming off another fight versus him, now with shadow coalitions, if anyone was to turn a coalition against me, it would probably be Biggles, right? So it's us kind of digging our feet in because, hey, I don't want to have to make this even more of a full-time job than it already is doing politics. By allying up with Biggles, it makes it much easier to manage your politics because I know he can manage himself, right? So from our point of view of having 90 people, do you really think it was an unmanageable thing, or like I think it gets back to, is it just too much work to then have to do what we did before we started?
Well, yeah, I think a lot of it was also the fact that we kind of didn't expect anything that big to be going on. Like I knew that there would be like Gravity would be dropping and Biggles would be dropping with his group, but I didn't like I don't think anyone really would have guessed that those big alliances who have been kind of rivals for a long time would group up and contain half the vets, if not more, on the server.
Right.
So it wasn't like that we couldn't prepare, it was more that we didn't think that we would have to.
So this was
I mean,
this is
I-
Biggles'
wait,
question,
one-
right?
One second, Feca.
Yeah, you
I'll
got
just like counter this argument. Me and Feca did publicly post that we were going to team up. Like this was all out in the open. We publicly said this loads. We said it in voice chats. We put it in text. We put it in all the discords. We said, "Hey, me, Feca, and Sinbad are teaming up," and it's something that I've heard a lot against me recently. Is you didn't tell us this was happening. We did say very publicly many times, and I get that people don't always check the Discord, but it comes down to the fact that if we say it publicly, we can't exactly spam it like every 5 minutes in game, right? We make a big announcement. Like I've always done it. We're dropping here. We're doing this, and that's what we've done. But again, we had to recruit more because we thought you guys were gonna like recruit all the guys around you as well. So we had to prepare for that situation, and that was what we had to do to deal with you guys because we were all like let's be blunt, we were all trash talking in politics, right? All of us were, both sides. Like we were all memeing each other, we were all joking around. So we had like it's server one, right? We wanted to win server one at beta, so we put the effort in, and then you guys didn't like what's the word? Didn't do what we expected you to do, and then it kind of went badly in general for the server. But like my guys still had fun. I've recruited so many new people who have loved our team and have loved the game, and now they're on server 10 doing like 10 times as better than they did on S1, right? And it's been really good for me to see. Like my favorite part of the game is teaching people, and it's been something that's happened a fair bit in my coalition that they've done a lot. They've done a lot more than they did on server one, and that's improvement. And I love seeing that in my guys. But I'll ask Game Controller, like, do you feel like the problem was more the fact that we were pre-made, or more of the fact that it was an issue that we recruited too much too quickly in the game, but also spawned in as a pre-made and knew what we were doing?
I think it's kind of a mix of both. Like I definitely think that pre-made alliances are always going to be a thing. I don't think it's particularly bad, but I think that when pre-made alliances end up having like when I was going in, I was of the mindset of alpha, which was kind of my fault. But I was thinking like, oh, coalitions, it's going to be 3 alliances working together. And it was kind of and then you guys had everything that we expected, but then all the extra secondary alliances that had all the extra people.
Yeah, I mean, and this pops up to what we said earlier with me and Feca. Like, we had all these spare peoples from the tournament server, and that we recruited in the tournament server when our actual people dropped out, and like we couldn't say no to them, so we had to make a second alliance, and we come with this issue, right, where we had too many people, we don't want to turn them away, and then it comes into an issue. You just see like the problem here is kind of our fault, but at the same time, it's just kind of the way the game went. And server one's always going to be abnormal, though, in fairness.
Yeah, and we actually had like a really big coalition kind of meeting before the server started where we talked about, we just stressed the point, we said we're going to be open about this. I think I even made a Reddit post of exactly where my team was going to spawn, and then the fact that we had allies on either side of us. And then I think a lot of it is just I want the game to provide more ability for us to say, hey, this is what we're doing. Now, I don't know, because once we're in game, right, after those first few days, I think it was blatantly obvious. I think Doll even made a map really early on saying big, bad, evil pre-made or something. That's kind of where we took up the super evil coalition thing. But but I just don't know what else we could do. And especially like what Biggle says, if someone says, hey, I want to play with you guys, I don't even want to play for first, I'm just kind of playing for fun, like I'm going to take second in something, when you give us 3 win conditions, it really truly was at its core 3 15-man alliances, and we all said we're going to be the 3 that ally, and then everyone do what you would normally do, right? So we go and recruit. It's a game of attrition, so you're going to go recruit a second alliance. That's just natural. Every single alliance, we saw almost every other team playing with 2 alliances. So you saw, like, I think I saw 2 Salamanders. I maybe even saw 2 Space Marine ones. Correct me if I was wrong. And then definitely like the Warden and Witness group, like everyone had at least 2, right? And just between that, that's actually what we spawned in with. So then we had another meeting after the game started, like, oh man, there's a lot more alliances on the other side than we thought. So even then, once we spawned in, we were rushing to get a 3rd alliance because there's so many people around us and so many little alliances that we were piecing them together, because it's like, we are going to have this massive fight. There's so many people over there. And then you guys, I guess, just didn't get along or didn't ally or couldn't come to an agreement by the time the snail arrived. So that's just from our point of view what it was looking like, and it wasn't like, oh my god, we're gonna win, so let's recruit more because we're gonna win harder, right? Like, we're not like thinking in that mindset, right? I truly believed we were underhanded, just like we were in tournament server when I was on my team and we had to play against the 2 big coalitions.
Yeah, just to answer a question that was made in chat with Roadhip.
Mhm.
My personal team, right? And me and Feca already agreed, like, we were going to split up, and we spoke to Sinbad, and we're going to split up for these normal servers. And we might even go against each other on the tournament servers. Like, we don't know what's happening yet.
Yeah.
We haven't planned that out yet. We'll discuss that later. But our team do plan on... I plan on eventually going, hey, Gilly, do you mind, like, leading a team on this server? And then I will go lead a team on this server. Because we have, at this point, enough players where we could have made another 4 alliances on S10, right? And you could even ask my other people. We stopped recruiting because we got too many. We could have easily got a bunch more alliances, and I had a few people in my ear going, Biggles, please. It would be so funny. Please just do it. And I was like, it's going to ruin the server even more. We want to have fun. We've arranged these guys to fight us already. We've goaded them into fighting us, and now they're doing it. So now we've got an actual fun server. Let's not ruin it by getting 20 alliances and just steamrolling. So now what we're doing is we're going to have a good plan that is this server will be finished, and then we'll go on another server. I think the next server I'm actively playing on my main account will be the draft server, which, by the way, Feca, we're still doing that server.
Oh yeah, we got to.
Server 21 is basically, I'll plug it now. Why not?
Okay, yeah, why not? At the end of the episode.
We plan to do a draft where we get people to sign up on this Google form, and then we will select lead. We'll randomly select leaders for teams, and then we'll have them each choose people out of the list, one at a time for the teams. So kind of like drafting your own team, right? Out of a massive list, and then we'll see how this all happens, and how that fight, and then we all spawn close together and fight each other. Have a massive fun server.
And there's the form if anyone's interested in being part of the first StarBorne draft. And we're just gonna goof off and have fun, and that kind of corresponds into what my group's doing next after this group. Like Biggles was saying, there's no point in continuing to win. Server 1's the only one we really care about. We're gonna do from the Expanse Belter RP, where we only go after ice belts as our victory condition, and no one can have ice belts. So we're not gonna interfere with any of the real game, but we're just gonna be going after your ice as pirates. so we're just mixing it up a little bit.
That's something that I've always loved, and this was something that Sai did on Alpha 8. You remember, Feca, the pirate challenge?
Yeah.
And this was something I loved. Like, spawning in as a solo pirate, having your progress recorded by someone who's not an official dev, and it was just something really fun to do. Oh yeah, for Controller, we're actually doing the drafts. That's what we planned this ages ago, and was like,
yeah,
let's just do it. It's funny. I'm not going to be leading. I'm not doing any leading.
Yeah.
I'm name up for drafting.
You're just gonna get put in a team, or we'll help set up the teams, and we'll help moderate how it works. But yeah, all spawning in, and just the last man standing or last men that have an alliance, or obviously women. That are in an alliance left standing in that sector is the winner, and it just who cares about the rest.
We personally want to see a bunch of new players become leaders, and then kind of see who they pick out of the list, right?
Right. Yeah.
I want to see who they pick. I'm gonna get picked last.
There's a little checkbox to see if you're willing to be a leader, and then we'll randomly pick from the people that have said they are willing to be a leader, and then we'll do an old like dodgeball draft where you just go back and forth snake draft, and you get who you get, and hopefully it works out. Obviously, there's certain situations where people dip and stuff, but yeah, it's the same draft split that we put up before. I just grabbed it, but hopefully we do that.
Yeah, I think it'd be really fun for like. You've got people that might join in, like Feca, Yatak, myself, anyone, right? Anyone can sign up. We don't care who it is. You can be blacklisted, you can join us. You can be an enemy of us, you can still join it. I think it'd be really funny to see what people mix match as a team, because you've got all these names that people do different things, right? A lot of us have like a role we spec into, and it'd be interesting to see how people prioritize people. It's going to be really funny, and I'd love to see that. But yeah, shameless self-plug for the draft server.
And we're up to 35 responses now, so it's at least 2 teams. So it's definitely going to happen. We put it server 21 just to put a random number kind of out there, just to make sure we have time and the community can develop a little bit, and we don't like mess with an up and coming server. But I think it's exciting. It's something different, like everybody's saying, like Vane's saying.
I mean, yeah, the devs are working hard to make new game modes, and this is something we can do to have a game mode that's like kind of like a unique game mode, but not enforced by the devs, enforced by the super evil coalition members.
Yeah.
And you've got this amazing interaction where, hey, now we have a bunch of alliances all spawning together in a massive cluster. The rest of the server can do what they want. We're just fighting each other here.
Yeah.
It's like a massive battle royale. That could be funny.
Yeah,
I'm hoping for like 5 alliances or more, hopefully.
Yeah, and that's another point. We definitely don't want to ruin the game for any like new players that are actually playing the game for the win conditions stuff. We'll let them have all the win conditions. Hopefully they don't go for the Dyson. That's I guess they think Libra or whatever. But like we'll try to keep them out of it because the objective is to just kill. It's just last man standing, just team deathmatch. I think it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, I definitely think there's some content to be had, and that's gonna need to get streamed, and I'll probably stream it. It's just going to be hilarious. And I was thinking what we could do, Feca, is if we set up a specific Discord for the draft and then actually have them communicate in their own separate channels in the draft.
Oh, yeah.
But have it so that there's a neutral party as the leader of the Discord. Like, say Exorbitant is the server owner. So we can't see the other chats until the server's over.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Kind of like make a YouTube content based on, hey, these guys planned this, these guys planned this. Look how politics works from this perspective, right?
Yeah.
And it's something that can definitely be argued. It's just the more content and the more stuff for the game is the better for the game.
Yeah, and that's a quick, like, I just want to do a quick appreciation for you actually trying to put on this podcast and doing this. This is something I've talked about for a long time. I wholeheartedly love anyone doing extra content. I'm so happy to help be here for this first episode of the podcast. And it's what I've talked about since the first episode of my own podcast that we do, is just that I can't wait for more people to do a podcast. I hope someone comes and does it better. I want people to take it off my hands. I think the more content you put out there, the more people you get in, the more people that want to see, oh, I watched Biggles podcast. Oh, but look, there's another one because I really like these podcasts. And you can bounce back and forth. I totally think, especially as a community, we're all ready for more content. And I'm excited to see the future of this.
Yeah, something I am planning for written and YouTube content is I've got some of my best players who I'll be speaking to. We're making a full guide on the game to the point of I've even got a section specifically for politics and each aspect of politics.
Oh, man.
A complete guide. I've got a page that's 2,000 words long, Feca, which is just called Judging the Leaderboard and How It Impacts the Game. So you've got like how to compare the leaderboard to actually winning. But yeah, I haven't got much content out yet, but I'm planning to release at least weekly videos, and we've got some more meme content out there as well.
Oh, that latest one was awesome. The pink snail one. We got Sec77 said link YouTube channels. They're all actually mostly up there in streams and videos. If you scroll up a bit, you can see everybody. I know Gambler's been putting out a lot of new content. Even iMaple put out some content. Yeah, thanks, Nasha. I think it's been great how many people are putting out videos. Once again, I don't think it'll ever be an overcrowded market. I think just the more people that make videos, the more people that watch videos. I still have people messaging me being like, where's the next video? I'm like, man, I think I put out like 11 now or something. And I'm like, yes, like everyone keep doing it. I think there's so much content. It's crazy.
Yeah, this is kind of like where I'd naturally end the podcast, but we have if anyone wants to speak now and discuss anything about the game within reason and anything we discussed here and argue for it, if you want to speak now, then you're able to speak. Just ask me and I'll unmute you. Exactly. I don't expect people to hold their peace, but we can at least hope, right? Kind of like, do you want to be unmuted? Tell me now, and then we can kind of like see what everyone's opinion in the community is. But yeah, Feca, server 1 has always been a disaster on every iteration of the game. But I think this might have just been the worst, the most mess of a server.
Well, yeah, you got.
Why don't we just move to everyone welcome, guys?
Oh yeah, that works actually. Yeah.
I would like to make the argument it's because no one else had to deal with Jaw Talk, and now someone else did, and they couldn't handle it. And that's my favorite argument.
Right. I've given everyone speaking terms, so you can join and leave, and you get speaking terms if you want to speak.
I'm gonna go ahead and head out.
Right,
I got stuff, but thanks so much again. I'll send you my video recording. I did screen share too, so you can see who's talking. I don't know if you want to use it.
If that's okay, thanks.
Yeah, for sure.
I got the audio as well, so
Awesome.
it's good to have a backup there.
For sure. Take it easy, guys.
Take it easy, Feca.
Bye.